Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and remember to subscribe. You can also follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon. Everything used to be decentralized. People would grow their own food, chop their own wood, build their own houses, get their own water. But now we find it much more efficient if someone in Guatemala grows bananas for us instead. We are centralized. We have each country doing what they specialize in better than any other country. In Michael Porter's book, Competitive Advantage of Nations, it helps you understand how nations compete and are able to specialize in certain products and services. This may be based on the people, culture, technology, environment, and resources. For example, Guatemala can grow bananas much better than Iceland. Anyway, we become dependent on all these nations and sources of products that we're able to import cheaper than if we produced them ourselves. Particularly if you lived in a developed country. In a developed country, you have higher human capital that are able to add more value onto products. For example, a nation with low human capital may perhaps chop down trees and sell lumber. A nation with higher human capital would use said lumber and make furniture with it. The extra value added from lumber to furniture adds a lot on compared to the raw materials. But if you don't have the human capital or skills to make furniture, then you just have to sell lumber. This is partly why other nations are so much richer than others, because they have human capital that is able to add so much more value onto products. Anyway, we're digressing a little here, but basically these days everything is centralized. I mean, could you imagine trying to refine your own gasoline from your own oil well? No, not going to happen. We depend on gasoline. However, this is heavily centralized and controlled by OPEC. This was demonstrated in the 70s with the oil crisis. The Middle East decided to raise prices and limit supply of oil in protest to what was happening in Israel. OPEC imposed an embargo on oil. America felt the oil shortage hard. The US quickly realized how important controlling your own oil is, and now have enough sovereign oil so that no one has that power over them again. It was by then a little too late for the US auto industry, as the Japanese had now crept into the market with their low-cost, more fuel-efficient cars, taking a decent market share from the US autos. But what about eliminating oil altogether and having your own car run on electricity? Just plug it in at home and it's good to go. No need to ever stop at a gas station again. Oh, but you're still dependent on that pesky electricity. What if there's a power outage? Or what if it becomes too expensive? Yes, we all know what I'm about to say. Solar power will decentralize you from dependency on the grid. You can make your own power, store it, and transport yourself in your car with this energy all independently. I'm a big fan of decentralization. It gives power to the people. Well, literally in this scenario, as we're able to generate our own power. It removes insane moats that oligarchies have to hoard their excessive wealth. I don't mind people becoming successful and wealthy if they've done it in a way that has improved the standard of living for people to a higher relative scale than their net worth. For example, Elon Musk can be argued as the person most responsible for the effort in removing the world from fossil fuels. Maybe that is worth an average of $1,000 to everyone on the planet. Well, that means Elon would have improved the global standard of living by around $10 trillion. If Elon's net worth was $1 trillion, then that would mean he's improved the standard of living by 10 times his net worth. But what level of decentralization should we aim for in society? We have air, which is very hard to centralize or control, luckily. However, water not so much. We all depend on our water supply. Unless you have your own well or spring, then it's hard to decentralize water. Although there are machines that can extract the water out of the air, which produce however many litres a day, along with methods of capturing and storing rainwater. However, food could also be somewhat more decentralized. Most of us have a garden large enough to grow a reasonable amount of food. Of course, instead, we'd rather have a lawn and some flowers. Wow, a lawn. Yes, lawns were considered uber luxury in the olden days. I mean, just imagine having that much spare land that you can just grow grass on it. Also, you can find enough water for the grass to stay green too, and have the time and energy to continually trim the lawn and keep it maintained. This was unfathomable in the olden days, and we take it for granted now, but lawns are highly underrated. So we can grow our own food in our gardens, and in World War II, Churchill would even tell citizens to grow their own food, as food supplies were disrupted significantly and being rationed. It would be good, perhaps, if Kimball Musk's company Square Roots ended up making food more decentralized, perhaps. It's obviously a much better diet, too, compared to the centralized packaged food you get in supermarkets that contain so many unhealthy processed ingredients, not to mention all the packaging that we throw away. Oh, I miss Whole Foods supermarkets. I swear, that is one of my favourite things in America. But wait, that's not fair. There are some really rich people who would be affected. It's not fair to take their hard-earned money off them. That's socialism, right? Well, no, not at all. These wealthy individuals have built up enormous moats around their businesses through the likes of regulation or cartels, that it allows them to simply hoard wealth. If these moats are removed, then sure, these individuals will lose enormous amounts of wealth, but the wealth would not only be indirectly shared amongst the people, it will be that much more efficient that overall everyone will have a lot more on average than the wealthy have to part with. Centralization takes away from the overall average standard of living for everyone. Besides, I'm not saying we are physically taking anyone's wealth from them, merely opening up the economy into a more free market-based system, creating an even playing field for other entrepreneurs to compete, with superior products that better our lifestyles. A classic apt example being the Tucker automobile in the 40s, a superior car that the big three legacy companies in the US totally oppressed into bankruptcy, a car that invented seatbelts and saved lives as a result. The legacy autos didn't even care about drivers' lives, or else they would have also added seatbelts earlier. And yes, before anyone comments, I know that Volvo invented the 3-point seatbelt, which is not what I'm referring to. In fact, now it's the same. The legacy autos do have a lot of safety features in their cars that save lives, but they're optional extras. In a lot of cars, you have to pay extra for automatic braking or lane control. Well, Tesla seems to think that making extra profit isn't worth people losing lives over. Legacy autos could literally save lives over less profit. Just remember that. Oh, right. Also, don't forget the millions of lives they also kill with all those other chemicals that come out of their exhaust pipe, carbon dioxide being the least of your concern, along with the brake dust responsible for respiratory diseases. You know what? I think now I actually relish the idea of these smug companies all going bankrupt. I used to try and think fair, yes, that any company that can make EVs is good for the planet, even if it is legacy autos. But now, if I'm really honest, I don't think any of them deserve to make it to the next round. Especially given what we'd just heard come out of Germany. That's right, the German automakers just got sued for $1 billion. BMW, Audi, Volkswagen, Porsche and Daimler all colluding on another emission scandal. But it makes you wonder what they actually get away with too. Yes, it will be bad for all their workers when they go bankrupt, but that is part of creative destruction. These people will find new jobs in new industries and retrain if necessary. But if you currently work for a legacy auto company, then it might be prudent to start preparing for a new career sometime soon, as it would be a lot more difficult later when everyone is in the same boat. The writing is on the wall. Billionaires really do love being billionaires and intend on doing what they can to maintain such a level of wealth. Building moats through cronyism will help them hold on to their wealth. But the cost to society of them holding on this fortune is much greater than the actual fortune itself. My view in economics is the best economic system is the one that improves the overall standard of living for everyone by any means necessary. Sometimes those means require lots of corporations to go out of business, just like we're seeing with Tesla against the legacy autos. The world has created a better form of private transport, so we need to let go of the past and move to the future, and it will result in the decentralization of energy as a major bonus. Next, hopefully Bitcoin can decentralize finance, and then perhaps some of the Wall Street quants can change careers too, into areas like science and engineering to create the likes of better battery technology, rather than just finding ways to create profits. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.